Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Glad to have you back for another episode. Today I'm going to title this, What Kind of Company Are You? And my career is based around working with dentists, and there's certain things you can say and certain things you have to be careful of. And I say that because there's like this box that dentists put around themselves. And the reason is they've watched the way everyone else has done it, and this is kind of passed on for a long, many, many years and decades. And so people look at the way the person's done it before them, and that's how they learn to run a business. And then, as business acumen is growing in business, then people are willing to listen to more. But I would tell you that, if I was to push through a message to dental practices, there's a lot of messages, but for this podcast, I'd want to know what kind of company you are. And let me tell you what I mean by that. So companies end up being in typically two sides. There's the front process, which is lead generation, right? So it's like there should be an entire team, if you think about it, of people in any organization, okay? It doesn't matter whether you're a staffing company, whether you're a dental office, whether you're a construction company, it doesn't matter what company you're in. Ideally speaking, there is a group of individuals, or individual at least, in the company who is focused on nothing more than lead generation, nothing more. And then what happens is this person or this team goes out. It's typically the sales and marketing department or the salesman or saleswoman, or that person is responsible for going out and getting all these new clients. And then what happens is there's a delivery. So for instance, in a construction company, there's a whole sales and marketing team. They go get, let's say I'm making up something on the spot. You're a swimming pool company. And so there's a whole part of the company that's generating new leads. And then somebody converts those leads to sales, right? And these people aren't focused on what happens with a swimming pool. They don't know anything about Marcite. They don't know anything about the tile. They don't have anything to do with that process. They have everything to do with how do we get more people buying swimming pools. Then there's the other side who delivers the swimming pools, right? And then that's the crew that comes in and digs the hole and does all the construction part of it and brings in the beautiful waterfall and the hot tub and all that stuff, right? And if you think about it, they're completely different, right? The sales and marketing team, outside of knowing the products, doesn't really need to know anything about how to install Marcite right? I mean, they don't need to know that. They're not delivering the pools. And I give you that example. I love for you guys, especially as dentists, to think outside of dentistry. I think, I know you'll be a much better business owner if you think of, as we in MBA, our MBA minds, the MBAs always think of case studies, right? We analyze companies that have done things well and companies that haven't done things well. And so that's a case study, and it's an abstract case study, but thinking about that model. And then I want you to think about a dental practice for a minute. So in a dental practice, we have delivery, right? We have swimming pool delivery. So all you're doing all day long is delivering. Now, lucky enough for you that through maybe insurance or maybe doing a good job with some other patients, you've got people walking up and saying, I want some more swimming pools. So if we started looking at your operation for a minute, and I ask you to rate the percentage. So, and we can look at it different ways. And if you got a piece of paper, by the way, when you listen to this podcast, I would probably keep a piece of paper handy. As I've told you before, though, if you're driving down the road, do not do that. You can do it later. Now, all these videos are on YouTube as well. So you can go to YouTube and you can type in Tower Leadership or Dental Wealth, and you can pull up the podcast, and then you can watch it as well, so that you can go back and take notes later. I would encourage you to do that. By the way, the second time you listen to this podcast, you'll hear things you didn't hear the first time. That's just kind of how our brains work. So we get into this place of thinking, okay, well, in my dental practice, how much of my energy, I want you to think about this, how much of my energy is put around, percentage-wise, around delivery of service, because you're a service company. How much of my time and energy is put around delivery of the service versus lead generation, versus the new patients? Because remember, we grow a business in 3 areas. If you don't know these, then you definitely need to write these down. We grow a business in 3 areas. 1, we get more patients coming through the door, right? So whether that's maybe sometimes it's new patients, maybe sometimes it's your current patients, maybe it's reactivating patients. It's one way we get more people coming in the door, right? And it doesn't have to be giant moves either. It doesn't need to be going from 15 patients a day to 35. It can be going from 15 to 17, 15 to 19. And those incremental moves have a huge difference. If you think about the entire year, if you were to add 2 patients per day and you figure that out by a year, it's a dramatic increase in revenues. Now, the second way is we increase the average revenue, right? We use services, we use add-ons to get people buying more from us. They're already there and they need the service or product anyhow. And then the third way is getting them to buy more often, right? They're also adding additional services, which is why like a cosmetic does a lot too. Adding Botox, for instance, is a way to add a service, right? And so do you find yourself completely in delivery? And I would argue that 99%, and I feel pretty confident. I might be at 98%, but 98 to 99% of dental practices find themselves in 99% of their time doing delivery. Wouldn't you say that's fair? If you think about the energy that your business spends on delivery versus lead generation versus growing the new people walking in versus growing the patient base, how much of your time and energy is put in delivery versus lead generation? And you'd probably agree it's 99% of your time is put into delivery. Now, you're lucky enough to be in an industry where people will come to you because you're in their insurance network or because, they get a friend that says, hey, I've got a great dentist. But most industries, that's not the case. But don't look at that as a positive. And in fact, it can make your operations complacent. And it can make your company complacent because you haven't really created a lead generation system in your business. And then what happens is, now lead generation turns into sales, right? So we need to generate leads that then turn into sales. Now, I know the word sale is a 4-letter word to a lot of dentists, but it shouldn't be. I tell people that because if you don't get someone to move to action, then you can't help them. You can't serve them. And I would rather them come to you than someone down the street because you love them. You take care of them. You are the right person, but you've got to get that lead gen going. So how much of your time and energy is spent towards that? And I would argue it's very little. Who in your company right now, because by the way, I know this, the average doctor spends about 1.6% of their total revenues on marketing, which is a complete, I've talked about on this podcast, it's so far from where it needs to be. It needs to be at a minimum, probably 3 to 5% at a minimum of total revenues. And so who in your practice, and let's go to payroll for a second. How much of your payroll is dedicated to delivery versus lead generation, to growing the patient base? So i.e., do you have someone in marketing who's a marketing director? And I'm not talking about someone who ties bows, but I'm talking about someone who's actually focused on the numbers and focused on growing the number of patients walking through that door. And that's their full-time job. How many of you have that? How about revenues? What percentage of your revenues are focused? And by the way, I just said 99%, right? Same with revenues. I just told you it's like 1.6% the average doctor spends of revenues on marketing. It's the same thing, right? Think about that for a second. Just like your energy, just like your focus, just like your business model, most dentists spend around 1 to 2% of their total energy, their revenue, their time, their focus on getting new patients through the door. Or even, it doesn't, by the way, have to be new patients. One of the things that bothers me sometimes, it's going back and saying, well, you have to get new patients. By the way, guys, I hear, like, I get, because I think on LinkedIn and Facebook, I'm a dentist. I see the same ads you see. People promising you they'll get you 100 new patients in 20 minutes or whatever they're promising you these days. I think there's a lot of people that know, like, and trust you that would be willing to come to your practice. I mean, how many spouses do you have that have never walked in your door? Spouses of current patients. There's a lot of things you can do to get current patients or people that know, like, and trust you in the door. But if you spent only 1 to 2% of total energy, time, and revenue on getting new patients, then I'm assuming that that's the result you're getting. And that's one of the biggest mistakes in dentistry. It's one of the biggest mistakes that every single dentist, or 98% of dentists, make. It's the same mistake made over and over and over and over again. And the only reason you make that silly mistake is because your competitors and your friends that are dentists are making the same stupid, silly mistake. And you follow it. You follow it because the worst thing you do, this is the worst thing you do. I'm not trying to beat up on anyone. I'm trying to wake you up. The worst thing you do is you go ask them what you should do. They don't know either. They're the ones spending 1% as well. And then you wonder why your business is doing $1.4 million after 30 years. That is not success. I hate to tell you, it's not. 30 years and doing 1.4 million is not successful. I'm not trying to be rude, guys. I'm trying to be somebody who helps you create dental wealth. And that is not dental wealth. That is called you being an employee and you getting a paycheck. That is not a business that truly is scalable, that runs without you being there, that provides the life you want, the revenue you want. It's not it. But if I told you, I want you to go hire someone who only focuses on getting patients in the door. That's all I want you to do is have that person. You would push back so hard. Like, how can I afford this person? Wouldn't you? Let's be honest. That's the first thing you would do is you'd come back to me like, Eric, I can't afford him. I can't afford this person. Which is not true. The money's everywhere. If I walked into your practice, literally there's the amount of patients who are not walking in your door, the amount of recall that's not happening, the amount of service that's not being performed, the things that aren't happening because of that. Like if we invested, and then you ask your accountant, by the way, can I afford this person? Which could be worth, a person who only focuses on taxes and expenses will tell you, absolutely, you can't afford this person. They will always tell you can't afford this person. Because they don't look at the revenue piece. See, if you want to create an amazing dental practice, one that has more people than you could ever imagine, you would have to put a considerable amount of energy on the front side of your business. So the front side is people walking through the door and increasing that number. The back side is the delivery of the service. The delivery, right? So front is getting new people or recurring people to the door. The back is the delivery. But if you spent 99% on the back end, well, that's a lot of where your struggles come. I tell people it's easy to dominate in dental. It's easy to dominate. It's so easy to dominate because everyone keeps doing the same silly thing. I feel like I'm fired up today or something. I'm fired up because, it's something that like I can see so easily. I'm an MBA type. I am an MBA, and it's so easy to analyze. And I analyze businesses, by the way, in lots of different industries. And I spend a lot of time with CEOs and business owners in a lot of industries. And it baffles me and blows my mind that dentists spend so little time on lead generation and so little energy. Matter of fact, if I say to a dentist, like, spend $2,000 on marketing, they like almost panic, but they don't have any problem taking a $20,000 check home. That's no problem. But $2,000 on marketing, that's absurd to them because they see it as an expense of the corporation instead of an investment because someone told them it was. Their business is getting 30, 40, 50% profit margin, but they'd rather shove it in a 401k doing 4% after fees. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So who's going to focus on lead generation? And don't say you, by the way. Don't say you. Don't say, okay, Eric, I got it. I'm listening to what you say. I'm going to go out and I'm going to be the lead generation guy. No, you're not. And no, you shouldn't be. You're the CEO of the business. The question is, who's it going to be? Now, you can insource it and you can outsource it, by the way. You can certainly outsource it and outsource it with a company who really truly is growing that number of patients. Stay away from the fly-by-night people who, like, there's people that are like, the year out of their school and they're telling you you're going to get 100 new patients in an hour. Stay away from that stuff. But there are concrete things you can do to grow the number of new patients. And by the way, you could do it completely internally. I want to say that again. You could do it completely internally without going external at all, without spending $1 in marketing. You could invest within your corporation an individual who had nothing to do but focus on lead generation, focusing on growing the number of people walking through that door and focusing on the number of patients. And if you just had them, I want you to do the numbers for me. Like, do your own numbers. And let's say every time, and it's pretty fair for most dental practices. I mean, let's just say statistically, your average patient, and by the way, you can take how many patients came in. By the way, most of your patients came in twice last year, right? So what we can do is we can look at your revenues and figure out how many, they take a 6-month period because most people came in twice, and you could divide that and you could figure out how much you're getting per patient walking through the door. And you can figure out the average per patient that walks in your door, how much revenue you get every single time somebody walks through your door. Literally statistically, and obviously the more numbers you have and the more years you want to take into account, the more statistically significant your numbers become. But you can get it down to like $282 per patient. Every time somebody walks in the door, boom, there's $282. And then you could figure out pretty quickly, you could say, well, my gosh, all I'd have to do is get X amount more people because, like, for instance, you could fix your cancellations that are probably already a drain on the system. You could go back to, opening capacity. There's a lot of things, by the way, there's a lot of complexity behind this too. I'm not trying to completely make it simple, but I'm trying to help you understand from a philosophical standpoint and a strategic standpoint that if you had somebody who did nothing more than focus on growing the number of people walking through that door, and you didn't even get new people, your revenues would go up significantly. But if you focus 99% of your energy, I always say you get what you measure. So if you focus 99% of your energy on just delivering, you're going to get 99% of results from delivering, but you're going to miss gigantic opportunities. By the way, look at DSOs, look at corporate. What do you think they're doing? Do you think they spend 99% of their energy on delivery? Or do you think they put a vast sum of time, money, and resources into growing new patient base, into growing current patient base? Do you think that's happening? Of course it is. Of course it is. And they know you won't, by the way. So you got to do that. I want you to think about this for a second. Like, what are you willing to commit to growing the front side? It's not an expense. Please stop looking at it and going, oh my God, how would I afford that? It goes back to the old, like I see it on LinkedIn and stuff every now and then. It's like the old saying, And this is why you don't ask your accountant for business advice. Because this is the answer. It's the same thing. Why ask a CFO? The CFO says, what if we spend all this money on training for these people and they leave? Right? Expense focused. And the CEO says, what if we don't and they stay? So important to understand as a CEO that it's an investment. It's an investment in your business. It's an investment in your growth. And scarcity mindset is what holds you back from having the dental office of your dreams. Scarcity mindset, saying, how can I afford this, is what's holding you back. Instead of spending that same energy focused on what's it costing me to not grow my lead generation process? What's it costing me not to invest in marketing? What's it costing me not to grow my business? What's it costing me to not open my capacity? And the number is in the millions. The effect of not making these investments on your business is millions in revenue. But you keep going after the same advice that's not getting you where you want. The effect on your personal net worth is in the millions. And I would argue that over time, the effect on your generational legacy is in the tens of millions of dollars. I know that to be a fact. The biggest erosion of wealth in so many ways is scarcity mindset, because it stops you from making the decisions you need to in this world to have what you've always wanted. Because the frontal lobe takes over your thought process. To grow your organizational ceiling, to be able to move your organizational ceiling, you've got to make key investments in your business. So that's my challenge for you today. My challenge for you today is to sit down and figure out what's it costing you not to grow the front side of your business. If you need help with this, sure, reach out. We'll be more than happy to help you. A lot of you can do this on your own though. What's it going to cost for you to not have that in place? I want you to write down the percentage right now. I mean, when you get done with this or wherever you stop at a good spot, I want you to write down what percentage of your revenues are you focused on right now on the front side of your business. It's a CEO conversation. This is like CEO to CEO. If I'm coaching you right now, and I'm telling you, what percentage are you spending on the front side of your business? And if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, it's one of your biggest problems. It's one of your biggest problems. And I would go back and say, where do we need to invest? Is it team? Is it marketing? Is it outsourcing? Is it patient follow-up? Whatever it is, we need to start creating this whole entire front side of your business that grows so many patients that you don't know where to put them. And then we open up capacity, and then we add team, and then we get another location, and then we go buy a building, and we can do awesome, amazing things that create so much wealth you wouldn't even know what to do with it. And eventually, over time, we're able to add other doctors. And then as we add other doctors, you get to pull back, you get to move into a CEO role. The practice has an operations officer. It starts running without you. You don't even have to be there. You're in Fiji getting a check while your practice runs by itself. And then we figure out what to do with all the extra time and money. But if you don't have a front side of your business, then I'm going to tell you what you have as a job and not a business. If you don't have a front side, if you don't have a lead generation, if you don't have someone and a team of people, whether they're outsourced or insourced, growing the front side of your business, you have a job. You have an income, but you don't have a business. Businesses generate leads, which generate sales. And if you don't have that, then I would argue you don't have a business, because it's not going to provide the scalability you want. If you've got to be there every day, by the way, then you have a job. If you've got to be there every day, it's a job. It's not a business. Business is run without you having to be there. And that's a process, by the way. I'm not trying to, look, if you're like, Eric, I'm already in the chair 4 days a week. It's a process, guys. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, but understand, growing a business and the ability to grow that business and then getting out of the chair is what you want, so that you don't end up retiring on a fixed income and figuring out if you can pay for your prescriptions. I mean, there's so much more you can do with this life and with this career that you've chosen. And there's so much opportunity for impact financially within your community, within your family, and in so many other ways. So maximize the front end of this business. Right? What kind of company do you have? Are you just in the delivery business, or do you have a front and a back side? And today what I would focus on is making sure that both sides are covered. Hey guys, hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Make sure you get this stuff put into place. As I said, if you're listening to this, I think the vast majority of you listen to this in the car. Listen, take a few minutes. I keep these podcasts to 20, 30 minutes. Sit down, get a notepad out, and get a piece of paper and start. Like, I'm a high value coach. I don't mean that in an egotistical sense, but I get paid really well to help coach the top performers in this industry. I'm giving you advice that is so impactful, and I'm doing it for free. You need to make the commitment, though, to sit down, take notes. What do I need to go put into place? Things like this. The problem with free is sometimes we don't value it, right? The problem with free, I did a study one year. I took the people that paid me the most, and I took the people that paid me the least. I mean, zero, right? I did it for free. And I did a study of how much their net worth grew. And it literally was like 100%. It was proportional. The more money they paid, the more result they got. Why? Because they valued the information. And I would also argue they had abundance mindset. They were willing to make investments. My point is, like, if you're getting something like this, a lot of people will listen to it and then go about their day. Don't do that. Like, this is like great information that I'm telling you can change and transform your practice in life. If we can help you grow it further in the future, sure, reach out, but take this information that didn't cost you anything but your time and put it down, write notes, go watch the YouTube, subscribe to YouTube. My gosh, it takes a click so that you can get notifications on your phone. Sit down twice a week and make notes. Create an action plan. What are you going to put into place? And that's what successful people do. So make sure. And by the way, one thing that successful people do is they share information like this. I'm going to always encourage you to do that. You hear this and you go, my gosh, don't see. A scarcity mindset says, well, if I share this with my dental friends, then they'll do better than me. And I don't want them to do well. I don't want them to do well, just not better than me. That's scarcity mindset, guys. I would rather be hanging out with people that are highly successful that help me raise my game than people who aren't. And one of the greatest things you can do is share information that helps people. You guys will all share it with each other and you'll help each other grow and become better. And one of the things that's great about the dental community is you guys tend to share. But sometimes some of that sharing is not the best information for business growth. So when you hear great information, share it. Look, so like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Make sure you're getting the message out, because I pour my heart out every week. Want to make sure you guys get great information because I care. When I say pour my heart out, what I mean by that is I really truly care about your success. I care about you doing well. I love this industry, and I create this podcast for that very reason. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.